so let's try again. Hi everybody. I do apologise, we had some issues there with the chat not wanting to behave itself. Not the chat, the internet connection not wanting to behave itself. So we're going to start again. Consider the last one a dress rehearsal, because it's early in the morning. And let's start again. So I hope that wherever you are and whatever you're doing, you're having a good, safe weekend. As someone noted previously, yes, the bird poo is gone. This top has been through the wash since it was filmed, because they actually film it on a Friday. This is all for as good as they can be. Twitter and Periscope are being silly, so I don't entirely know what's happening there. We'll see. It seems that the stream is now working, so if you are watching it, please tell me. I would very much like to know if there are any issues with it. I don't know why our internet connection is being so poopy today, but there we go. There are people watching, so that is good to see. Alrighty. We may just be pushing our internet connection a bit too hard. I hope that's not the case, because that would suck. Let me just try and fix this. I do apologise. I'm having to do 3 things at once. It's never a good start to a Sunday. There we go. All good here, no issues. Whilst you clearly enjoy messing with servers, why don't you just pay for a cloud service to save time, cost perhaps? This is from Adrian. Alright. Do you mean to store the videos, Adrian, for 10? Let me know if that's what you mean, and I can answer you. Wait for that all-American truck to go past. So yeah, let me go back to the top again. Hope you're well. It's been a good week. I'm on the front porch because it got down to about 2 to 3 degrees Celsius last night, which is just above freezing, and the sun doesn't get round the back until quite late. And so what we decided to do was we decided that what we were going to do would be to be out front, because being out front is nicer when the weather is a little bit cold, because at least here we have the sun, and so that's really cool. Error, YouTube is not receiving enough video. I'm just going to carry on talking, and I'm going to pay attention to the chat and not the streaming service, because for some reason it's being a pain. So lots happening this week in the EV world, which we'll come to in a second. Apologies for making the stream early. We had a bit of a calendar malfunction. My wife and I had both planned to do stuff at 10, and our daughter, who has an essential industry services job, needs to get out, so we had to, switch our plans to give her a bit of a lift to work, and so that means I've got maybe about 35 minutes today for this hangout. So I'm sorry that that's happening, but later on today, hopefully, if things go well, I'll have a go at plug-in racing on Forza 7. So that's probably actually why the internet's a bit slow, because I'm doing an update to Forza 7 to make sure that I can actually race later on today. So someone says, Mo Herbert says, YouTube is being YouTube. Interestingly, YouTube, because more people are watching YouTube and there are more people doing stuff on YouTube, YouTube's come under a lot of strain from a networking point of view, and that's causing some issues, and obviously we're hitting it today. Someone said earlier on, whilst you clearly enjoy messing with servers, why don't you pay for a cloud service to save time and cost? If you're talking about places for me to store the video data, I can explain that really easily. Size. So every video we make uses a lot of different video footage. Some of that video footage comes from automakers. Some of it is footage we've filmed, but all of that footage lives on our server. We have about 100 terabytes. Nice bike, got my bike. 100 terabytes of server. At the moment, 80 terabytes is being used, and of that 80 terabytes, probably about 50 or 60 terabytes is devoted to A-roll and B-roll. The majority of it, by the way, is B-roll, which is the pictures of the cars, the fun stuff, the stuff that automakers give me. About 14 to 16 hours to produce, and I have to download fresh B-roll from automakers for the stories, plus pull up any of the B-roll that I already have on file. And the actual editing process, excuse me, I've got hay fever at the moment. The actual process of editing can take between 2 and 3 hours. Now, it can take 2 and 3 hours because I'm pulling video files from YouTube, or not YouTube, the B-roll that's been supplied by automakers. I'm pulling that into the timeline and I'm dropping it in and I'm editing it. And if I had to pull down, excuse me, if I had to pull down B-roll every time I edited, I would need another 10 hours to pull all that data down. So actually, that was a BMW. That was a GS 800. Was it 850? Was it 850? So all of that data has to come down the pipe. If I'm downloading it every time at 20 megabits per second, which is our maximum internet speed, it sometimes gets up to 40 down if the mobile modem works as well as our down the valley stupidly expensive wireless broadband. But either way, that video that's coming down takes a really long time. And then people say, well, why don't you just download the videos from YouTube with the pictures of the car that you want? And you go, yeah, that's a way of doing it. But what you may not know about YouTube is that YouTube compresses everything. And there's a really interesting video that MKBHD did, Marcus Brownlee, on his YouTube channel, that tests how quickly and how much a video can deteriorate between its first upload and its 1000th upload. So they downloaded it and then re-uploaded this video 1,000 times. Yeah, it kind of caught me offhand as well. It wasn't the Boxer. Yeah, it didn't sound like a Boxer, but it was a Beamer and it was a GS. So the video quality, every time you upload it to YouTube, YouTube compresses it. And if you upload and then download that video and then upload it again and then download it and you keep doing it, eventually the compression artifacts become impossible. Go watch his video. It's so educational because it shows that if you upload and download and upload and download those videos all the time, it causes problems. And so you're in that position where the ability you have to keep all your videos on YouTube and just pull them down when you need them and then re-upload them, or re-upload bits of them, will dramatically and seriously impact your ability to produce high quality content. So everything has to be local. Everything has to be local. Now, do we have a backup cloud storage solution? Not yet. Will we have one? Probably, eventually. I'm trying to find somewhere to store our second server that's off-site, that's away from here, that has an internet connection that we can just dial into and push stuff to. That's what we need to do. And I haven't got around to figuring out how to do that. Before COVID and everything happened, we were storing, obviously the data for work was at the office, and then I was dialing into the office from here and pulling the data down. We're not allowed to have a server on our network that's accessible outside of the house. So I think what we'll have to do is basically push data to a server. So there we go. Good morning, Alexis. You're not too late. You missed a false start because my network connection died on me. I think actually what happened was that I might have had the Wi-Fi still enabled, even though I've got this cable going into the garage, this long cable going into the garage with our internet connection. I think I may have had that still enabled, and I think that may have caused a problem. But that's not really what I want to talk to you about today. What I want to talk to you about today is everything that's going on with this whole Michael Moore film that's coming out. And the DWC says, the G850 GS is an inline twin. It is indeed. That's why it didn't sound like a normal Boxer engine. All right, so Michael Moore, guy behind Shooting for Columbine and other well-known, I'm going to call it neo-green movement, criticizing companies like Tesla, criticizing solar companies, criticizing battery companies, and he's critical from modern day environmentalism, as he calls it. And the reason being, the narrative of this story, of this documentary is, yes, the planet is screwed. Yes, we need to save the planet. We need to save ourselves. The planet will be fine. We need to save the planet. We need to look after the environment. But all of these electric cars, all of these solar panels, all of these high-tech solutions are not helping, and we all need to stop. And the idea behind it is that, you know, obviously he's going to highlight things like the mining used to pull materials out of the ground for use in electric vehicles, the toxic chemicals that are used to make cars, to make batteries, to make solar panels, to make wind turbines. I've only seen one interview that he's given. I was watching MSNBC a couple of days ago and he was on there, and I was kind of cooking at the time, and I kind of got quite cross with some of the nonsense he was spouting. And I don't want to preempt a video that I want to make on the subject. But he was basically saying, you know, the commercialism of, you know, this. He was talking about commercialism and capitalism of environmentalism, and saying that's wrong and we shouldn't be doing it, and that's going to cause us more trouble in the long term. And, you know, has environmentalism become capitalist? Yes. Is it wrong? Should we be doing it? That's a tougher question, right? Because if you say no to capitalism, you say no to a lot of the projects that are happening right now to make the world a better place. And whichever way you turn it, you know, modern day society is for the most part run in a capitalist way. But there are plenty of examples of technology that does not have to be kind of this consumerist environmentalism, this capitalist consumerist environmentalism. Putting a solar panel on the roof of your home can last a really long time. Technology is improving solar panels on a yearly basis, both in terms of the cost to produce and also in terms of the materials used. Now, material science is at the heart of modern day environmentalism. And I think if we were to remove that, we would be very, very, very screwed. And as DWC says in the chat, equating capitalism with high-tech and industry gives capitalism too much credit. If we can't do tech and industry better with democratic control, as if we can't do tech and industry better with democratic control rather than a private dictatorship. And you've hit the nail right on the head. I think that's a very cogent and very observant comment to make. We live in a society where we have a choice. We can all go back to living in caves, right? That's choice number one. Or we can find a more sustainable way to do what we're already doing. And I think that's what we have to do. We learn as society goes on that nothing we do is permanent. None of the buildings we build are permanent. None of this is permanent. None of our methods and practices are permanent. Sure, we can be trendy and we can go back and we can buy heritage this and heritage that, and we can do away with all of the genetically modified stuff we consume, and we can go back to a simpler time. But the issue, I think, isn't necessarily that we are using too much technology to try and solve environmental problems. The problem is that there's too many of us. And again, for the current way we are living, we can either choose to get rid of people, which is a non-starter and something I would never want to see because it's horrendous and terrifying and horrible. Or we find a more sustainable way to live our lives using the technology that we have today and solutions that we have today in order to allow us to grow and move forwards. Now, let's take one of these more efficient ways of living and examine it in a contextual way. Farming is incredibly energy intensive. We know that farming meat is more energy intensive than farming vegetables and fruit. But growing things in the ground as a system, if we're looking at it from a scientific efficiency standpoint, is not the most efficient way of growing things. If we wanted to be completely efficient and completely green and completely sustainable, everybody would be growing everything hydroponically. And who do we really have to thank for hydroponic research? Well, NASA has played a huge role over the years in developing hydroponics and research-based methodologies, thanks to experiments in space and experiments on the ground. And hydroponics is a very efficient way of growing plants. So let's talk about transport, okay? We can get on a horse, we can walk, we can bicycle, we can run, we can buy a train ticket or a plane ticket or a bus ticket, we can drive a car or a motorcycle or a bike, and those are many different choices available to us. Some are more energy efficient than others. If we want to go with the most energy efficient option, then, well, that would probably be walking. I don't know if walking is the most energy efficient. In fact, someone was saying to me recently that walking is not efficient, and I can't remember who told me. But from an environmental point of view, probably the way that we prefer to travel today, which is mainly by automobile, is probably not the most energy efficient. Now, we know that riding in a petrol-powered car is terribly bad from a pollution point of view. And if we want to have a greener existence, then driving an electric car, over the lifetime of the vehicle, the well-to-wheel of an electric vehicle, even if it's charged using dirty power mixers, is cleaner today than the gasoline refined from the ground. So electric vehicles may not be the be-all and end-all, but they're the step in the right direction. And Michael Moore's concept and idea, as far as I can see it, as far as what I can infer from reading between the lines and listening to interviews, is that we shouldn't be doing any of the things we're currently doing because it's causing damage and we're all bad and we need to stop and save the planet in a different way. And it strikes me as a you can't have your cake and eat it moment. And as I said earlier on, we've got, 8 billion people on the planet? And we're all consuming too much. Well, not all of us, but many of us are consuming too much. And if we want the world to continue to exist as it currently is, to allow us to live on it, we have to find more efficient and environmentally responsible ways of doing things. Is going into a hut and, hunter-gathering, is that going to solve it? No, it's not. There's too many people. So we have to use science and technology to find a more equitable solution. Now, thankfully, materials scientists are really crazy smart. Evolution of battery technology for electric vehicles is coming on leaps and bounds. We heard this week that Professor Goodenough and Professor Braga's glass solid-state battery, which uses a glass powder as the electrolytic solution, is coming on leaps and bounds and is being researched by Hydro-Quebec in France. Now, the solid-state glass, we thought that the best battery technology we could have was not any of the things that we're now using. That's really important to remember because we evolve, and so do our technologies, so do our efficiencies. If you look at the efficiencies of a light bulb over the last 150 years, you see how much a light bulb has become more efficient, from those early Edison light bulbs to what we use today. Little tiny LEDs that can output incredible amounts of light. All right. Thank you. Think about, we're nearly 8 billion people on the planet, says Alexis. How are you going to feed everybody with that high-tech production? I don't see what Elon Musk is doing as capitalism. I do, actually, just a little bit. Because he is deriving profit from it. And capitalism is basically how most people are working. You can have social capital. I believe you can have like a socially responsible capitalism. You could argue that I'm capitalist because I'm making money off these YouTube videos through Patreon, through Ko-fi, whatever. So it depends on what you eat as to whether it's whether bicycling or not is more energy efficient. Mo says we need more affordable, tasty vegan recipes. I couldn't agree more. Hi from the UK, just got in from work. Thank you for your hard work. I'm afraid we are going to be finishing a little bit early today because, as I said earlier, I have to go and do a run, drive my daughter to work. So you are technically petit bourgeois. There you go. A little bourgeois. Thank you. But the whole concept of Michael Moore's, I'm going to swear, let's shit on environmentalism doesn't really feel right. And there's two things that sit at the back of my mind which really shouldn't. The first one is that Moore is, I believe, based in Michigan. I'll just state that fact. I hope I'm not wrong. If I am, I apologize. But I wonder if that has a part to play with it. And second, if he really believed what he was saying, you could argue that he wouldn't be doing what he's doing in terms of talking about it and creating all of this publicity and using some of the technologies that he complains about. So, you know, he also has an ability. He's a shock. He does shock documentaries. That's his shtick, and I think maybe he needs some more money. I don't know. I don't want to be mean about the man, but I need to sit down and watch some videos today and maybe come up with a more seasoned response to this, because I know it's something that worries me greatly. All right. Can 1 billion people live like the Amish? I don't think so. No, absolutely not. And I think a lot of people look at Amish and Mennonite and other similar groups like them. I think they look at their lifestyle as being bucolic, innocent, easy, but it is anything but. It is anything but. There's some great websites and blogs and documentaries, which I hope are sympathetic, that talk about the life experiences of those who grow up in those communities, and it is far from the idyllic, bucolic lifestyle that we're led to believe. There's a lot of inequality within the community. Women especially are often not given a physical, as the case may be. We outsiders don't get to hear about it, and often until it's too late. And I don't think that society could go back to living like that. Now, do I think that do we think now that we could go back to a simpler way of life? No, I don't. But I do think that we could all live a better life. For example, you know, it's about being able to produce your own food. It's a very wet tomato pot. This is a tomato. I love smelling tomatoes. This is a tomato that I grew from seed. Okay, everybody can grow tomatoes from seed. In fact, if you eat a tomato and you save some of the seeds, you can pot them up and you can grow your own tomato plants. If it's an F1 hybrid, you're not going to get good fruit. You're not going to get a plant the next year that you'll be able to eat from or easily. But you know, if it's just a regular tomato, you can actually grow them for generation after generation without too many problems. This one is not an F1 hybrid. There are some in here that are F1 hybrids. But being able to grow your own plants. This is a California wonder pepper. Having space in your garden, having a garden, having a windowsill that you can grow stuff in. If everybody learned how to do this, and there really is no special skills required, then life could get a lot easier for people. So if you're growing your own food and you understand where your own food comes from, it changes your relationship with food, with the planet. You start to think more carefully about, where am I going to get these things from? How am I going to deal with this? And I think that's really important for us. I can't grow anything. Plants in my care invariably die. Well, there are ways around that, thanks to science. You know, you can buy things like potting compost that has something called vermiculite in it, which is something that helps retain water and helps the plants grow. You can do that, and it can make a real difference to your plants. There's some vermiculite in here, actually. A little bit of vermiculite right here. Helps retain water. being able to learn how your world works and the world around you, and understand how to fix things, and understand how things work, I think is going to do us more good as a society than banging the pots and pans and telling the world we're doomed because we're all using technology too much. I don't believe that that is a solution. I don't believe that turning our backs on technology is a solution. Think of how much we now take for granted every day that has made a genuine, impactful effect on our lives because of NASA, because of the space race. And sometimes the challenges that we made, sometimes the challenges that we face are challenges that we don't need to engineer a solution for. Okay, so great example is the biro. The biro, obviously, pen that can operate in low gravity situations, right? And engineered and all of that. We now take them for granted. The Russians just used a pencil. So I think moving forwards, we must be really careful that what we do and how we do it is done because it's the smartest solution at the time we're doing it. And we need to accept that that's okay. But we also need to be mindful that we don't spend a lot of time and energy wasting resources for solutions that we don't need. And therein lies the rub. There's a lot of things we do today in our life that we really could do without. And I'm going to put my hand up and say, yes, I'm part of the problem there. I don't need light bulbs that are able to control. That is not an essential item, though. Being able to get people to and from work, that's essential. Being able to get people good food that is grown locally and harvested locally by local people for the local community, that is essential. Being able to ensure that every home can generate and store their own energy, zero carbon energy, that's important too, that's essential. Somebody said that the Russians used a pencil thing has been discussed and debunked quite well. Send me the links. I'd love to know. I love it when people tell me I'm wrong. Send me the links, because I want to make sure that I don't repeat that, which would be, you know, bad. All right, so I must go shortly. Unfortunately, as I've said, I've got to go at past, and it's coming up on past now. So I will wish you adieu. Have a great rest of the day. I will be racing in Formula E later on today, and with the plug-in adventures crew. They call it plug-in racing. I'll be taking part in that, assuming that the download has finished and the game is there. We'll be back next week. Thanks for watching. Do me a favour, let me know if there's been some issues with shadow banning on the main channel, because our viewership count seems unnaturally wavy at the moment, and it's causing me some concern. But anyway, thanks for letting me sit on the front porch, enjoying the sun. I was outside in the garden all day yesterday, and it's really, really much nicer to be outside than other stuff. So anyway, thanks for joining me. Thanks for putting up with a slightly bizarre start, and as always, keep evolving. It's the first time I've done that. Should be like that, shouldn't it? This is my old way, and now this is the new way. I've got to learn it.